Hi, my name's Jane Greyer. I run a company called Create Ceremonies. I'm an independent or a civil celebrant, which means I create and conduct wedding ceremonies, renewal of vows ceremonies, and commitment ceremonies for couples all over the UK. I'm based in South Wales, but I travel all over the place, so that's not an issue wherever you're based at this point in time. So I've agreed to do a little video today for Bridget, who runs Wedding Fairs Bristol, as something different to put on the Facebook page, really. She's asked me not to do what I quite often do, which is to talk about the role of a celebrant and what I can do for you. And there are quite a lot of videos of me talking about that on my Facebook page, which is Create Ceremonies. So if you want to see that, by all means, have a look over there. But today I thought I'd talk about something just a little bit different, which actually impacts on every single couple as they get married. So in a lot of ways, the most important and central part of your wedding day is the vows that you're making to each other, the promises and commitments that you're exchanging, and that the words that you're saying to each other. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about your options for vows, regardless of what kind of ceremony you're having, really. So there are some restrictions around the place. So if you're having a religious ceremony, there will be set vows that you'd be expected to use, though there may be some flexibility depending on your vicar or your priest around what the wording of those is. If you're doing a registrar's-led ceremony, then there are legal ramifications around the words that you can use, but you will also be given a choice. And quite often when I'm talking to couples, and I'll say, oh, so what kind of vow have you gone for your legal ceremony? And they'll say, we went for the quickest one. We went for the shortest one. We just don't want to be saying very much. And I always think that's interesting because in some ways that ties into our fear, I suppose, of public speaking, of being the center of attention. But it also shows in some ways that our lack of awareness of what those, or remembering, if you like, what those vows are there for. In many ways, the vows that you say, the promises you make to each other are the foundation of your married life together. And isn't it lovely if we have the opportunity to say words to each other that actually have true meaning for us and are relevant to our daily lives? And that's something as a celebrant I do all the time. So I work with clients to create their own vows. So sometimes couples will do them entirely themselves. Sometimes they'll work with me, and sometimes I'll do it on their behalf, and we'll bat them back and forth until they've got something that is unique to them, really reflects their relationship and the commitments that they wish to make to each other. So there are various options you've got. So I'll go through a few of them, and you might find, so some registrars will let you do additional personal vows as well as the legal vows. So it's worth asking that question. If you want to have something that's a bit more focused on your commitment to each other, though they are likely to be a little bit sensitive around what you include in there. So definitely nothing religious. They may not want them to be jokey or to be light-hearted, apparently light-hearted in any way. So that's a conversation to have with your registrar. Couples that work in with me will tend to do the basic ceremony with the registrar. So two of them, two witnesses, no choice in anything. They do the legal side, and then we create something that is unique and totally focused on them and their relationship. But if you're thinking about your vows, how should you go about it? What should you do? It's a tricky one because people get very fearful about talking in public and saying some of the most personal things, if you like, most meaningful things in front of other people, in front of your parents as well, which is quite an odd thing in a lot of ways to be making these big promises. And you've probably heard some vows over and over again. Maybe there are some words that you really want to hear within your vows because you've heard them since you were all the way since you've grown up. Maybe there are things that you really don't want to. So the obey section that used to be to love, honor and obey used to be a set vow, and quite often now ladies will refuse to have that section because it seemed to be something that was done on the one side and not on the other. So you had unbalanced vows, if you like, and the whole focus was on this obey, which isn't quite something that we have as a central part to our lives and our married lives these days. So how do you start off? Let's have a little bit of a think. You've got some options, really. So we probably all know the repeat after me style of a vow. So as a celebrant or as a registrar, I would say a vow, and then you'd repeat it after me. So I'd say part of it probably, and then you'd repeat that after me. So we're saying it back and forth. That's probably the best known style of vow, and it's certainly the one that the registrars will use most often. Alongside that, you've got the interrogative, which sounds awful, doesn't it? Interrogative vow. So that's the point where the celebrant or the registrar will say something to you. They'll ask you a question and you answer, I will or I do. And there's normally one of these. So in your choices with the registrar, you will have a repeat after me. You will have an interrogative. So if you really just want to say I will or I do, then that's an option. If you really don't want to say very many words in front of your family and friends, then that is normally an option. But there are a couple of other ones that you can use that I quite like to introduce people to and then have a conversation around them. So there's a monologue. And if you're doing personal vows with the registrar, then that's something that they might allow you to do. So you take it in turns to read. I wouldn't recommend memorizing. Those are very good to be really familiar with your vows, but to think you're going to do it completely without any prompts on the day is a big pressure, though you can do if you want to. But I would tend to suggest that it's written down in some way and you read that to each other. So one of you reads it first and then the other one of you reads it second, your own personal commitment, if you like, to that person. And they could be the same thing, they could be different things. It's a way of putting a more personal slant on it. You've also got the option of doing things in unison, so which you can't do as a legal ceremony. Legally, you have to both be heard independently speaking, but you can have the opportunity with a celebrant-led ceremony to do something in unison. So you both get asked a question and you answer together, which is, I suppose, another way of showing your unity and your commitment to each other, that actually this is something that you're doing together. You're not doing it independently, you're doing it moving forward very much as a couple. And the last style is what's called a conversational. Now this can be quite an interesting, quite a challenging kind of vow, but really beautiful. So this is where you take it in turns to speak. So potentially partner A will start off by making a promise or a vow. Partner B will then repeat that promise and add a bit onto it. So another promise, if you like. Then partner A will repeat that promise and add a new one on. So it's going back and forth between the pair of you. Or both of you will be saying the same vows, if you like, but you'll be saying it in a conversational style, going back and forth between the two of you. That can be a really beautiful way of involving lots of other thoughts and processes in your vows. How do you go about deciding what to include within it? Well, that's an interesting one as well. So I would always suggest having a glass of something, whatever is your tipple, setting aside a bit of time and having a conversation, which tends to be something that we don't do, around what is it important that I hear you say to me, and what is it important that I say to you on those days. And quite often we'll take it for granted that so-and-so, you know, my partner would want to hear me say this, or that this is an important thing to say, when actually sometimes those things aren't the most crucial to us. So it's well worth spending some time and going through the things that you really feel it's important to hear, and the things that you really don't want to. So again, the obey section may well come into that. But it can be things around, yeah, actually, I promise to make the time to listen to you fully, you know, to not presume that I know what you're going to say. So I'm going to take the time to listen to you fully and not argue, not voice an opinion, not try and fix it, just give you time and space to say whatever it is that you're going to say. And then I'll react to it. It could be, I really, you know, promise to make sure I don't leave the wet towel on the bedroom floor after I've had a shower. Not that that's a personal one for me at all. It could be around shared responsibilities. It could be around supporting each other with your dreams and your goals. It could be around how you do things together, you know, that's particularly if there are children involved. How do you work as a couple to support those children? And if it's a blended family, then obviously your roles are different within that family, and how that is going to work out. So what is it that you see your future life being together? What is that going to be different to how you've lived before? If you haven't lived together before, then that's a big thing, obviously. But as you're moving forward, what are the values that you're basing your married life on? That's what should be contained within your vows to each other. And you can do lots of different things with it. You can include things that are quite humorous. You can include things that are very personal, you know, that would only be relevant to you. There's nothing wrong with having humour within your vows. And in a lot of ways, at the point where you give people permission to relax and to listen completely to what you're saying to each other. That heightens the emotional side of the commitment that you're making to each other, and it makes it all about you. So it's well worth having some conversations and jotting down some words and jotting down some phrases. So there may be phrases that you really like. There may be phrases that drive you up the wall. There may be words that actually are important to you, and words that you really don't want to hear, you know. So it's having a conversation, taking a little bit of time and writing down some thoughts about what you want your vows to be. As I say, with me, then I will work with the couple from that point onwards. And sometimes they write them entirely themselves, or they do a bit of a draft and say, well, this is the kind of thing we want. How do we go from here? And other times I'll take the words that they've given me and then I'll form them into vows using the style that they want to use. And then I'll send it back to them to kind of go, is this what you're after? Is this saying what you really want to say? Well worth putting a little bit of time into your vows, because this is actually what you're going to be basing your married life on. So that's it for tonight. That's it for today, whatever time of day this is going to go out. It's Jane Greyer from Create Ceremonies. If anybody's got any questions about vows or about how a celebrant can work with you to create a unique ceremony, please look me up on Facebook or have a look at my website, www.createceremonies.co.uk. I'm always happy to talk weddings. I'm always happy to give guidance, if you like, or to have a chat about your ideas and see how they can work. So by all means, give me a chat, give me a ring, give me a shout. I'd look forward to hearing from you. Take care.